I'm sick of this Kelsey Mitchell.
This was the moment everything changed. Fans didn't hold back anymore. They were done. Kelsey Mitchell, invisible in the second half, just shooting, and shooting some more. Everyone watching said the same thing. Either Kelsey Mitchell and Coach Stephanie White go, or Caitlin Clark has to leave. But that's just the beginning of this story, because here's what just happened. Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark's best friend on that team, the woman who has fought for her more publicly than anyone, just revealed something that changes everything. Stephanie White, the head coach, told her players to stop passing to Caitlin Clark on purpose. Let that sink in. Sophie Cunningham didn't drop some vague rumor. She didn't give a safe answer to protect the team. She didn't smile for the cameras and say the right things to keep the organization happy. She did something most players would never ever do. She named names. She told the truth. And that truth is devastating. The head coach of the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, deliberately instructed players not to pass the ball to Caitlin Clark during games, on purpose, as an actual instruction, as a real strategy. This isn't some locker room drama about who gets the ball more. This isn't some philosophical disagreement about whether to run pick and roll or isolation plays. This isn't about team chemistry issues. This is something way darker than all of that. This is sabotage, and it's happening to the best player on the team, the only player who matters, the only reason anyone is watching these games at all. Think about what that means for a second. Stephanie White told her players, don't pass to Caitlin Clark. That's the instruction. That's what happened inside that locker room. That's what got executed on the court every single game. In the entire history of the WNBA, and there have been plenty of controversies, plenty of locker room drama, plenty of coaching meltdowns, we have never seen anything like this. A sitting head coach accused by a teammate of deliberately cutting off the league's MVP candidate from her own team's offense. Never. This isn't bad coaching. Bad coaching is when your system doesn't work. This isn't a philosophical disagreement. That's when you run too much isolation or not enough ball movement. This is calculated. This is intentional. This is one thing and one thing only: sabotage. Think about this for a second. In the entire history of women's basketball, a sitting head coach has never been accused by a teammate of cutting off the league's best player from her own offense. Never. This is not a chess move. This is not strategy. This is one thing: sabotage. Here's why this revelation carries so much weight, and why every single person needs to understand the magnitude of what Sophie Cunningham just did. Sophie Cunningham is not some anonymous source. She's not a former player talking off the record. She's not a reporter who heard this through the grapevine. She's not a disgruntled employee looking for revenge. Sophie Cunningham was inside that locker room. She was in those practices. She was in those film sessions. She was in those coaching meetings. She heard what was said. She heard what was not said. She saw the system being built in real time, and she understood exactly what it meant. More than that, Sophie Cunningham has been Caitlin Clark's most visible ally. When other players stayed quiet, Sophie spoke up. When most teammates would have chosen the safe path, keep your head down, protect the organization, say nothing, Sophie went public. She defended Caitlin when it cost her nothing to be silent, and now she's gone even further. She's not just defending Clark anymore. She's burning bridges. She's willing to burn the entire building down if that's what it takes to tell the truth about what's been happening. That's not something a player does lightly. That's something a player does when they've seen something so wrong, so calculated, so deliberately destructive that staying silent becomes impossible. Sophie Cunningham decided that telling the truth about what's happening to Caitlin Clark mattered more than her relationship with the coaching staff. It mattered more than organizational loyalty. It mattered more than her own career safety. She said it anyway. Listen to what people are seeing. Caitlin goes off in the first quarter. She's playing amazing. Then Stephanie White and Kelsey Mitchell look at each other like, okay, we gotta give Kelsey hers now. It's not basketball. It's petty. This Indiana Fever organization is a complete joke. Here's the part that should make every Indiana Fever fan absolutely furious. Because the proof isn't hidden. It's not something you have to dig for or analyze deeply. It's right there in front of us, all season long. Sophie Cunningham's revelation means something specific. If the head coach instructed players not to pass to Caitlin Clark, then what we've been watching isn't just bad basketball. It's not just poor offensive decision-making or selfish play. It's a coaching directive being executed. And when you go back and watch the film with that knowledge, everything changes.
Kelsey Mitchell, just dribbling into people, losing the ball, like just not passing it, just refusing to pass it. This ball could have been passed a long time ago, Kelsey.
Watch this closely. Really watch it. Kelsey Mitchell has the ball on the wing. Caitlin Clark is standing open. Not sort of open. Not barely open. Legitimately open. In position. Ready to score. Ready to make a play. And Kelsey just dribbles. 1 dribble. 2 dribbles. 3 dribbles. 4 dribbles. 5 dribbles. This ball could have been passed passed a long time ago, Kelsey. This ball could have been passed a long time ago, but it doesn't get passed. Kelsey keeps dribbling. The pass never comes, and Caitlin Clark stays open while Kelsey forces a bad shot. This isn't a one-time thing. This isn't a bad game. This is a pattern, and we're about to see it repeat over and over and over again.
The pocket is right there. You see the lane. You see the pocket. Throw the ball.
The ball never finds her. Look at this possession. There's a roller heading to the rim. The defense has collapsed away. There's literally a pocket of space where Demetrius Dandas can catch it and score. The pass is there. It's an easy pass. It's the right play. Any basketball player at this level should see it. You see the lane, you see the pocket, throw the ball. But what happens? The ball handler just keeps dribbling into traffic, dribbling away from the open man, dribbling into defenders. Come on, you got to give that ball up to the roller. The ball still doesn't move. The roller stays open. The pass never comes. And instead of an easy bucket, you get a contested shot, a bad shot, no bucket. This is not accident. This is not coincidence. This is systematic. Look at this. The roller is wide open. Demetrius Dandas has space. The pass is there. You see the lane, you see the pocket. Throw the ball. But Kelsey just keeps dribbling and dribbling and dribbling. Come on, you got to give that ball up. This is the moment this entire story shifts. This is where it changes from bad basketball to something much, much darker. When a player ignores open teammates repeatedly, when they force shots over and over again, when they dribble into traffic instead of making the obvious pass. What's the normal explanation? That player is selfish. That player wants it to be about them. That player doesn't trust their teammates. That player only wants to score. That player only cares about themselves. That's the narrative everyone accepted this season about Kelsey Mitchell. And you know what? Kelsey Mitchell might be some of those things. That could absolutely be true. But Sophie Cunningham just handed us a completely different variable, a completely different angle, a completely different explanation for everything we've been watching. What if Kelsey wasn't acting independently? What if she wasn't choosing to keep the ball away from Caitlin Clark because she's selfish? What if she was following instructions? What if the directive came from the top, from the coaching staff, from Stephanie White herself? What if Stephanie White told her players, when you have the ball, do not pass it to Caitlin Clark. Keep the ball moving through other players. Isolate Kelsey, get Kelsey's shots, but do not facilitate Caitlin's offense. If that's true, and Sophie Cunningham is saying it is, then suddenly all of this makes sense. The dribbling instead of passing, not selfish. Following orders. The forced shots over open teammates, not poor decision-making. Following orders. The offensive sequences that make no basketball sense, not randomness. Following orders. This isn't Kelsey Mitchell being a bad teammate. This is Kelsey Mitchell executing a coaching directive. Even if Kelsey doesn't know what she's executing, she's doing what she's been conditioned to do. She literally plays like she's out there by herself. It's literally a circus when this girl is out there, man. She's in her own world like she's dribbling in a mirror by herself. You got Angel Reese celebrating, blocking your shot. I mean, this girl just don't want to pass the goddamn ball, man. It's ridiculous watching Kelsey Mitchell play basketball. So now we get to the hard question. The question that every serious observer of this story is going to ask. And it's the question that might be the most uncomfortable one of all. Why would a head coach deliberately instruct her players not to pass to her best player? There is no basketball logic. Let me be clear about this. There is no offensive system. There is no defensive scheme. There is no game situation where it makes sense to deliberately remove your most talented, most efficient offensive player from your own offense. None. Zero. It doesn't exist. So if basketball logic doesn't explain this, what does? The answer that Sophie Cunningham's revelation points to is something most people don't want to talk about, something most organizations hide, something that explains more about professional sports than any basketball strategy ever could. Ego, politics, power, threat.
You're like, okay, Kelsey, we got to get Kelsey hers too. And now it's Kelsey Mitchell's turn. It's just like, it's nasty. This Indiana Fever organization is a joke.
It's like Caitlin Clark goes off in the first quarter, and then Stephanie White and Kelsey are like, okay, Kelsey, we got to get Kelsey hers too. And now it's Kelsey Mitchell's turn. It's just like it's nasty. Here's what nobody inside the Indiana Fever organization has been comfortable saying out loud. Caitlin Clark is bigger than the franchise. She is bigger than Stephanie White. She is bigger than any individual decision made inside that building. Her name is the reason casual sports fans even know the Indiana Fever exists. Before Caitlin Clark arrived, the Fever was invisible. Nobody cared. Nobody watched. Now, her presence is the reason national broadcasters show up to games. Her presence is the reason ESPN sends cameras. Her presence is the reason games get primetime slots. She's not just a player on a team. She's the entire team's identity. Her commercial value is the reason sponsors sponsors write checks. Her commercial value is the reason companies want to be associated with the Fever. Her commercial value has literally saved this franchise financially. And here's the thing that a coaching staff uncomfortable with that reality will do. They'll find ways, consciously or unconsciously, to diminish the thing that threatens them. They'll cut down the star. They'll build up the secondary players. They'll create an offense that doesn't center around the one thing everyone came to see. They'll tell players, don't pass to Caitlin. Sophie Cunningham just told the world that at the Indiana Fever, that diminishment wasn't unconscious. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't a byproduct of a system that didn't work. It was instructed. It was ordered. It was deliberate. Now we get to the complicated part. The part that requires us to hold two truths at the same time. Here's the honest basketball evaluation of Kelsey Mitchell. When she's making shots, when those contested pull-ups are falling, when the circus layups are going in, she's electric. She generates value. She's an offensive player who can get buckets in creative ways. When she's not making shots, that's when the real Kelsey Mitchell shows up. 11:03 to 11:12. Clip: Kelsey versus New York Liberty. Ball hogging, jacking up shots. Kelsey Mitchell reverted back to the Kelsey Mitchell that played versus the New York Liberty, where she was 6 for 7 of 21 and was just ball hogging, jacking up shots left and right. She didn't want to pass to anybody. 6 for 21. That's not efficient. That's not basketball. That's just shooting. That's just taking shots. And when she can't make shots, Kelsey Mitchell shows you the complete limits of her game. Here's the honest read. When she's not making contested shots, Kelsey Mitchell can't do anything else. She doesn't move the ball. She doesn't facilitate. She doesn't create for others. She doesn't play defense. She doesn't rebound. All she does is jack up more shots. That's a real problem. That's a real accountability issue. But here's where Sophie Cunningham's revelation changes everything about how we evaluate Kelsey Mitchell. If Stephanie White was instructing players not to pass to Caitlin Clark, then Kelsey Mitchell wasn't operating in a normal basketball environment. She wasn't playing under a system that rewarded ball movement and team basketball. She wasn't working for a coach who was trying to create the best possible offensive system. She was operating under a directive. Keep the ball. Don't pass to Caitlin. If that's the instruction, then Kelsey Mitchell's ball dominance is not purely a product of her own unchecked selfishness. It's a product of a coaching framework that authorized it, that condoned it, that may have actively encouraged it. Kelsey Mitchell did not have to fight against a system that wanted her to pass to Caitlin Clark. She didn't have to rebel against a coach who was trying to get Caitlin involved. At minimum, she was operating in an environment where that directive didn't exist. At maximum, she was operating in an environment where the opposite directive was given. Get Kelsey's points. Keep the ball moving through Kelsey. Isolate Kelsey. Now, does this excuse Kelsey Mitchell's individual decisions? No. Professional players at this level, players making millions of dollars, are expected to read the game. They're expected to find the right play. They're expected to move the ball when the pass is available. That's not optional. That's job one. But Sophie Cunningham's revelation contextualizes those decisions. It places the accountability exactly where it belongs, on the head coach. A player earning $1.4 million a year from the Indiana Fever should be able to do more than just jack up shots. She should be able to pass. She should be able to play defense. She should understand team basketball. The question is she unable to do those things? Or is she playing under instructions that don't require those things? That's the difference between a bad player and a player following a bad system. And based on everything Sophie Cunningham revealed, Kelsey Mitchell has been executing a bad system. A system designed to diminish Caitlin Clark and elevate everyone else. Now that Sophie Cunningham has gone public, now that the entire world knows what happened inside that locker room, the Indiana Fever organization has to make a choice. And this is critical. They cannot manage their way around this. They cannot spin it. They cannot wait for the news cycle to move on. The source is too credible. The evidence is too clear. The damage is too real. The Fever has two real options, and only one of them saves the franchise. The organization could issue a statement. Stephanie White could go on camera and say it's not true. They could claim that the offensive system is designed to maximize every player's strengths. They could say that the team is working through growing pains. They could use the word collaborative about 15 times and hope people believe them. This option is available to them. Other organizations have used denial successfully before. There's a playbook for it. No coach would ever do that. Our system is designed to get all 5 players involved. We're focused on building team basketball. It's possible they could weather this storm through denial. But there's one massive problem. This ball could have been passed a long time ago, Kelsey. This ball could have been passed a long time ago. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, just pass the ball. You could have given up the ball already. The film exists. The video exists. Every single possession from this season is on tape. The analyst in our transcript went through this footage meticulously, possession by possession, game by game. And every single time, the pattern was identical. Caitlin Clark standing open, the ball going somewhere else. Not because the defense took it away. Not because the play called for a different option, but because the person holding the ball had been conditioned not to give it to her. You cannot deny what's on tape. You cannot lie to fans who watch this all season. You cannot gaslight the entire WNBA fan base. You cannot look everyone in the eye and say, that's not what happened, when the footage proves it's exactly what happened. The denial option runs directly into the evidence, and the evidence wins every single time. The Indiana Fever fires Stephanie White. They restructure the coaching staff. They bring in new leadership that understands something fundamental. You build your entire system around your best player, not around secondary pieces, not around role players, not around whoever's most popular in the locker room, around your best player, Caitlin Clark. This option costs them Stephanie White. It costs them whoever else was part of the problem. It requires institutional courage to admit that the system was broken, but it saves them Caitlin Clark. And if you understand anything about the commercial and competitive reality of this franchise, that's the only trade that makes sense. Stephanie White was hired to coach an WNBA team. She got Caitlin Clark, the most valuable player in the league, the most important player in women's basketball right now. That's not a problem. That's the ultimate gift. A great coach builds around that talent. A great coach maximizes that talent. A great coach sees Caitlin Clark and says, how do I make this player unstoppable? Stephanie White looked at Caitlin Clark and said, how do I minimize this player? That's the choice the Fever made. And now they have to live with the consequences of that choice. Here's the reality that Stephanie White's entire tenure has made impossible to ignore. You cannot coach Caitlin Clark by coaching around her. You cannot build a winning team when your best player is your biggest problem. You cannot design an offense that deliberately excludes your most skilled offensive player. That is not coaching. That is not strategy. That is the opposite of everything coaching is supposed to be. You cannot win with your best player isolated from your own offense. It doesn't work. It has never worked. It will never work. There is no team in basketball history that has won by deliberately diminishing their best player. It doesn't exist in the NBA. It doesn't exist in the WNBA. It doesn't exist anywhere. You cannot build a franchise around one player and then actively work against that player from the sideline. Caitlin Clark is the entire foundation of the Indiana Fever's future. She is the only reason this franchise matters right now. She is the only reason anyone cares. And if you're the head coach, your job is to maximize her, to celebrate her, to build everything around her success. Stephanie White failed at all three of these basic coaching principles. She tried to coach Caitlin Clark by ignoring her. It didn't work. She built an offense that isolated her best player. It didn't work. She worked against Caitlin's success from the sideline, and it definitely didn't work. Just runs into taller people and just jacks up shots. Y'all watch this and it doesn't make you want to vomit? This is what this team is producing right now. Sophie Cunningham didn't just drop some juicy locker room gossip that the media could chase for a news cycle. She told the world about a story that could have gone a completely different direction. She revealed the existence of an alternate reality, a better version of this team that never had to happen. In that version, the coaching staff understood one simple thing. Caitlin Clark is the greatest offensive talent in women's basketball. Build around her. In that version, every play call is designed with one question. How do we get Caitlin Clark the best possible look? Every rotation decision is made with one goal. How do we maximize Caitlin's impact? Every system adjustment is built with one focus. How do we make Caitlin unstoppable? In that version, the Indiana Fever would be must-watch TV every single night. Not good basketball, must-watch TV. The kind of team that casual sports fans tune in to see. The kind of team that keeps people watching because they don't want to miss what Caitlin Clark does next. That could have been the reality, but it's not. Instead, this is what we got. A head coach who looked at Caitlin Clark and saw a threat. Coaching staff members who looked at her success and felt diminished. Players like Kelsey Mitchell who looked at her talent and decided to compete against her instead of with her. An organization that chose ego over excellence, politics over winning, and most damaging of all, a directive that went out to every player in that locker room. Don't pass to Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham told the truth. She told it knowing what it would cost her, knowing it would create conflict in that locker room, knowing that organizations do not typically reward players who go public with institutional accountability. She told it anyway because she understood something that everyone else needed to hear. Now the Indiana Fever gets to decide what they do with that truth. Do they fire Stephanie White and start fresh? Do they bring in a coach who understands what it means to build around generational talent? Or do they try to limp forward with a system that's already broken? The question isn't whether Stephanie White should be fired. That question has already been answered by Sophie Cunningham's revelation, by the film, by the fans, by the results on the court, and by basic basketball logic. The only real question is, does the Indiana Fever front office have the courage to act on the answer that's been right in front of them all season? That decision is coming, and when it does, everyone will know that Sophie Cunningham is the one who made it possible by telling the world what was really happening behind closed doors in the Indiana Fever organization.